Hello everyone and welcome to another Transfer Rumour Show. We've got to the middle of June now. Some of the big deals are starting to go. Well, Real Madrid's deals are starting to go, but they're normally the first big domino to fall. So we'll have to wait and see what the rest of the transfer week will bring. I've got two guys who I reckon I could probably beat in a game of dominoes, to be honest. Gareth Roberts and Paul Cope. But
say that.
Hey.
It's a mad claim.
I know, yeah.
I've got no idea what my domino skills are, man.
Yeah, but you've had no idea what my domino skills are. That's why I was confident enough to say it.
I used to play with my granddad quite a lot, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Watch this space. We might well have to have a battle later on in the show.
Domino show.
Yeah. I'm definitely up for that. Now, we should probably talk some transfers, since that's what we're actually here for. And a guy who's been coming up in a lot of dispatches about Liverpool recently. So it's only fair for us to really dig into him on this show is Nicolas Pépé of Lille, one of another devastating front three that they had alongside Rafael and Jonathan Bamba, that propelled Lille from pretty much a mid-table team in League One to the undoubted second best team in the league last season. We've been linked with him a lot. He fits our profile, Gareth. He's the right age. He's adaptable. He's exciting. He looks like he's ready to go up a level in the same way some of our last attacking signings have been. What do you think? Do you think that this is a guy who we are concentrating on completely?
He looks really good, doesn't he? I can see why, people have joined the dots on it. I can see why Liverpool are linked with him, and I think, you look at the stats around last season, and I think we were fortunate in that our front three pretty much played the majority of the season. Mo appears in 38 Premier League games, for instance, and you've got to prepare for the eventuality that one of them isn't fit at some point. I know we don't like to say these things as fans, but it's
reality.
Exactly, and in any organisation you've got to prepare for these eventualities, and if you end up short, then you've got egg on your face, and people say, well, why didn't you do that? And I was thinking about this on the way in, and I was thinking about last year. And it looked like at one point we were going to start the season with Karius, and everyone was screaming at their phones and at their computers and at everyone else going.
That feels like so long
ago.
But
it was like, how can you start the season with him in goal? And then we brought Beckham and everyone went, phew. And I kind of feel like the front three issue is getting similar in that, look, Origi could go. Everyone's talking about Origi, and I like Origi, but he could go. He's leaving his options open, and quite rightly so. He's got to think about himself as well. Then you got Shaqiri. And then all of a sudden you're looking a little bit short. Like Brewster, I'm really excited to see him next season, but he's a kid. And I don't think you can put too much on his shoulders. And so the idea of bringing in someone experienced, who's got a good goal record behind him, who can maybe play in more than one position in the front three, makes loads of sense to me. And I think, Liverpool obviously, European Cup winners and everything else, you'd think players want to play for us. The only thing for me is that when we were first linked with him, it was mentioned maybe 50-ish, then it was 60-ish, then it was 70-ish, and when I looked today it was up to 80. And I'm not saying Liverpool can't afford that, but it's just not the cheapest, is it? And I've watched highlights of him, and he does look a little bit Mo Salah light. Comes in on his left, kills them in the top corner and that kind of thing. Exciting player. But then, you got Bayern Munich interested, they need some attacking talent. You got United interested, they definitely do, and they've got money. Obviously, you wouldn't want to go there over Liverpool because they're shit.
We beat both of them last year.
Yeah, we beat both. We're a better club. But what I'm saying, if it turns into a bit of an auction, is what I mean, though, and over salary, over transfer fee, do Liverpool really want to get involved? Do Liverpool need to get involved? That's where the question mark is.
It's a very interesting question about the whole transfer auction part of it, because, like you say, we've been shying away from those things in the past. But, we're the big boys now. Maybe we should go out and do some big boy moves. Now, before I ask you all about him, Paul, we've got Gibbo doing some stats, crunch some numbers. You mentioned Salah there. We decided to try and do a comparison on the right side of our forward line across all three of the people we're talking about today. And first up, here's Pepe.
So we're looking at Nicolas Pepe, and he's been playing mainly off the right this season, so we thought we'd compare him with Mohamed Salah, who obviously plays a lot of his football there as well. We're comparing them as attacking midfielders / wingers, so these are looking at the stats that are specifically designed with those players in mind. So yeah, here it is, and as you can see, they're actually fairly similar in terms of what they're doing. Pepe's a bit of a Salah light, if you like, so he's not taking quite as many shots. As a result, his XG per 90 is a little bit lower as well, and his touches in the box are a little bit lower, but the graphs are actually pretty similar. Where he does kind of excel and where his numbers are slightly better than Mohamed Salah's in terms of fouls won. So he's obviously a very tricky player. He's won a lot of fouls for his team. I'm sure Trent Alexander-Arnold will enjoy that. And as you'd expect sort of from that, really successful dribbles a bit higher than Mo Salah as well. So he's carrying the ball well. He's dangerous around the box and he's winning a lot of fouls for his team. In terms of XG shots, they're actually fairly similar as well. So with the quality of the chances he's shooting from is similar with Salah. Salah's obviously taken a lot more, but that's maybe just coming from a more attacking team. So I'd actually expect Pepe's numbers to go up a little bit if he were to join Liverpool. But yeah, looking at that, the passing stats are very similar, crossing's very similar as well. So you can see why they are looking at Pepe if indeed they are as a bit of an alternative to Salah on the right. I'm sure he could do a little bit on the left as well. Apparently can play across the front. But yeah, looks an exciting player from that.
Thanks to John there. I told you we were going to use you more often. Now, one of the things we've been thinking about over the course of this transfer window, Paul, is the idea of if we're buying another attacker, are we going to be playing the ball? Are we looking to change the system so we can do 4-2-3-1? Or is it just going to be a like-for-like replacement? I mean, do you think that that's going to be in Jurgen Klopp's mind over the course of this pre-season?
Yeah, definitely. This is the funny thing. It feels like every summer we have this conversation when everyone's like, well, how does he get in the first 11? Like, there's no such thing anymore because you need all these players. And we've talked about this in the past that the last 2 seasons, I've heard people say at the end of the season, God, we got really unlucky there because one of these players got injured. And I was like, no, you're looking at it the wrong way around. We got really, really lucky that they weren't out any big chunks in the season. And I think more than anything else this season we've seen, because Salah actually seems quite sturdy, but I think you've started to see Firmino rocking a little bit with under the weight of what he has to do in this team, the amount of work he has to do. Because I think Salah's role, it's almost, there's an element of Salah's role that can become a bit Messi-esque, where it can be like, you just stay out there, mate, and save your legs. But Bobby Firmino will do your running for you, and Jordan Henderson will do your running for you. And one of the things I think last season people started to miss, and I think there's an element of this still, when it's like, well, we need someone to give Firmino a rest. And I think now it's like, well, we've already got them. Even forget the Brewster conversation. I think that's a bit of a red herring. You've got Salah, who can play up front. And now you've got Mane, who can play up front, who's had a go this season and done really well. So I think adding the likes of Pepe into the mix, it allows you to rest any of them. Because you can say, well, Pepe can come in and Firmino can have a break and Salah can play up front, or Mane can play up front. And it gives you all of these options. Because even when you're talking about the 4-2-3-1, we know, and we've seen the evolution of this over the past season. We know how many teams now are just going to say, you have the ball, you try and beat us, we'll just sit in. And in those games, like, yeah, all right, we'll have more of these lads on the pitch then. And we've seen him do that at times, where it's like, and this time, Shaqiri's he had a good season, he had a great impact, and I was made up for him. But it's the likes of him you want to upgrade on, I think, where when you come into that moment, you're like, yeah, well, we'll have Pepe in this mix now as well. And it's those times where I think, yeah, look, you see it with City, when you're the opposition team, and you're like, this is ridiculous now. He's out. De Bruyne's out for months for City, and no one even notices really, because they're that strong in these departments that they're all of the same level, and that's where we need to get to. I mean, it's crazy that we got 97 points and win the European Cup. And I'm still going back to last summer saying, well, I still thought we needed one more attacker. And you don't know how that would have impacted on the whole season, and I'm happy with the way it worked out. But just imagine where we go to when you get that lad, and as long as he fits into... For me, it's more about how he fits into the club, like how he fits in behind the scenes. Does it fit properly with that? Because you've seen... It's like having an incredible business, isn't it, where the team spirit's brilliant and everyone's made up. The last thing you want to do is upset that, just to bring in someone who's good at their job. Because everyone will be like, well, yeah, they're good at the job, but I hate working with them.
He can be good, but if he makes everyone else worse, then you've not got a very good factory there.
Exactly that, yeah.
Okay, it's Mo Scale time. I'm quite excited about this one because we've all been very positive here. It's interesting to see where we put our money. Robbo?
I'd love to play at Liverpool, if I'll be honest with you. And like I say, watched a bit of him, read up on him and everything else, and he sounds, someone who fits the Liverpool profile. My only thing is the auction aspect. So for the auction aspect, that makes me doubt it a little bit. I'm not going to start off, but I'm still giving it 4 mo's.
4 mo's, wow. Okay, I like that. You kind of lulled me into a full sense of security there.
4 Mo's out of how many? I've
5.
done the Mo scale before.
Well, yeah, okay.
Out of 5?
Yeah, this is your debut Mo scale rating. Make it a good one.
Can you go? Can we do fractions?
No.
We can
It means
Big
Sam
Arsenal
has to do
shout.
a bit of graphic design, and then people criticise his pictures of fractions.
That's just made my mind up for me. So what's the most difficult fraction for Sam to do in a graphic? 4/8. No, that's a half. 4/8. Let's say 4 3/8.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm actually really confident about this one as well. I think that we wouldn't be hearing about it this much without having done some serious due diligence, which tells me that they are already past the advanced stage. So yeah, I'm going 4.5 Mo's. I love you, Sam, really. We'll see how that one develops over the course of the summer. I'm sure it's not the last we hear of him. Now, 2 lads who we've already got, who play in a very similar position, who we're going to be hearing a lot more about over the next couple of days, Ryan Kent and Shea Ojo. Now, Shea Ojo has allegedly just done exactly what Kent did 12 months ago, in as much as signed a new long-term deal and gone out on a season-long loan to Rangers. Now, the interesting part of the story is that Ryan Kent won Young Player of the Year in Scotland last year, the PFA Young Player of the Year, and Rangers want to keep hold of him. But we're also getting some offers for a permanent deal around the £20 million mark for Ryan Kent from the likes of Leeds and Aston Villa. Now, this is kind of like a 2-pronged question, so I'm going to put one of each to both of you. So, Rob, I'll start with you. Do you think Ojo can make the similar impact that Ryan Kent did in Rangers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look back to when Brendan was in charge, he was on the periphery then. Mm-hmm. Highly rated, got a few games. And has done well at times. So he done well on loan at Fulham. Mm-hmm. Cut his teeth in the Championship and didn't look out of place. And I think, look, for me, with Ojo, there's always been sort of no question mark really about his talent. It's more like what he does with it. And so at times, like he's looked like maybe he hasn't looked after himself as well as he could have done. He's looked a little bit overweight at times. Then there's been other times where he's lost a bit and he's looked fast again. He got a bit of a go pre-season and you started to think, is he starting to edge into Klopp's thinking? Then he went out on loan again and he went to France. Didn't really work out for him out there too much, didn't get too much game time. But I think his talent is undoubted. And I think when Liverpool signed him, I think Chelsea were having a sniff, which is always a sign that, when it's more than one club, then there's something there. And the very fact that, as you say, he's got yet another contract. And I think he's 21 now, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
So the persevering with him, I mean, that's an age by now a lot of players have already fell by the wayside and they've decided they're not good enough. I think Liverpool are still sort of hedging the bet. It may be that they just think they can make some money on him. Mm-hmm. That's something you've always got to consider. But I think he can go and do it in Rangers, absolutely. And I think it's good experience up there because, okay, the standard at times can be questioned, but in the bigger games, it's a big crowd, there's big pressure.
Playing European football.
You're doing European football, you're doing the big interviews as well and things like that. So you can make a name for yourself like Ryan has. I mean, he went up there and struggled a little bit at first, but it seems sort of under Gerrard that he thrived, and then he ended up, as you say, getting a personal honour at the end of the season. So, we know that Gerrard and Klopp get on. It makes sense in lots of different ways. So yeah, I think he can go up there and do really well.
And here's hoping that is the case. And obviously in terms of Ryan Kent, he's gone through that. He's kind of come out the other side almost. You wonder how he feels about the situation, whether he's happy to go back to Rangers, maybe give Ojo a bit of a helping hand. If you can have one of them on either wing, is probably going to help him settle. But then there's also the idea that maybe he's thinking, I'm not going to get in this Liverpool first team. And now there's a Premier League team who want to put him in their team. And from Liverpool's perspective, we're doing really well at the moment with our sell-on value for a lot of our younger players. Is this going to be the top that we can possibly get for Ryan Kent?
That's a difficult question. I mean, generally speaking with these kids, I think it's interesting to see what their overall view is on this. Because part of me thinks, even what Robbo was saying there about playing for Rangers or Celtic, I was surprised that Harry Wilson didn't go up there. Because you don't get to play in front of those crowds at very many places. You don't get to play under that pressure. You don't get the chance to win stuff. And I think it's I often think, what would I do? Like, would I rather play for Wolves or would I rather play for Rangers or Celtic? And part of me is like, I'd rather play for Celtic, Like, I'd rather play in front of that crowd every week and become a legend for them and them have, like, be their player of the season and have them building statues of me and all that. It goes back to the Klopp thing about Coutinho. Like, what would you rather have I mean, Alan Shearer just popped into my head then about like, well, what would you rather have in your career? He could have gone to Man United and won stuff, but he stays at Newcastle and he's a legend for the rest of his life there. What's the bigger impact? And I mean, different answers for different people. I mean, as far as us going as an asset for the club, you may be better selling Kent now. He's never, I think everyone accepts he's never going to be good enough to play for Liverpool. You've got this problem, I remember saying this last year, the problem you've got for all of these lads is that they're developing at whatever rate they develop. But the problem is they're watching this first team now like develop away from them, which must be really tough to do, because when they're all breaking through, they're like, yeah, I'll get in this Rodgers team, definitely get in this Rodgers team, no problem. And then Klopp comes in and we just start like growing exponentially, and all of a sudden you're like, well, even for Ryan Kent, he must look at that and think, if he's being honest with himself, I'm not good enough. Like, I'm not good enough right now to go and challenge Sadio Mane for that position. They're getting linked with Pepe. Like, ultimately, Pepe is a 50, 60, 70 million player. Ryan Kent isn't. And there's always big moments in players' careers where they have to decide, and who knows what happens to them, because Ojo's a great example. A couple of years ago, he looked like he was flying, looked like he was going to be the next big thing. I remember watching him in matches thinking he's got everything. He's got that X factor that you very rarely have, where he can just beat men for fun. And then he just disappeared and he went out on loan. And I always go back to the same quotes from Gerrard years ago. It was like, if you play for Liverpool's first team, wherever you go next, you have to be the best player. And fair play to like Harry Wilson and Kent for that. You've got to go, if you go to Fulham, you've got to be their best player. If you drop into the reserves, you've got to be the best player. Fowler always used to do it. He'd be coming back from an injury and playing the reserves and score 5. Because he's just like, I'm well better than all of you. And everyone's like, yeah, you're well better. And it worries me for the likes of Ojo when they go somewhere and they struggle a little bit. And so, but then you go back to, I mean, I've been banging on about him and I will continue to now because he's just won the European Cup. Brendan Rodgers tried to part exchange Jordan Henderson for Clint Dempsey. That's not that long ago. And Henderson just went, no, I'll do this.
Reezy disappeared for 18 months, and then look at him now, he's won a European Cup.
Something else that was happening not that long ago was Ryan Kent was playing in the same team as Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Yeah.
So there are all things that we wouldn't have predicted that may well still happen. So we'll have to watch this space on those two lads. Hopefully Ojo can do well up in Rangers. Now, one further fella that we're going to talk about today, also looking on that right side of the front three, one that's probably a little bit more within reach for Ryan Kent, and a guy by the name of Domenico Berardi. He plays for Sassuolo. Now, I'm sure that you probably don't know that much about him. We were only linked with him as of yesterday, so we've got Gibbo on the case once again.
So we're going to have a look at Domenico Berardi. I do apologise. Liverpool, apparently looking at him, he's obviously very keen to come, been speaking up Liverpool as a destination. So we're going to compare him to Shaqiri. The idea is comparing him with someone who's going to have a similar maybe number of minutes, look to make a similar sort of impact. You wouldn't imagine Berardi will be coming in to dislodge the front three. It'll be someone like Shaqiri, a bit of an impact player. They can play in similar positions. Again, we're looking at this from a point of view of attacking midfielder / winger, so we're looking at those stats. But as you can see from the numbers, he's a very different player to Shaqiri, even if he might be coming in to do sort of a similar role. As you'd expect from his goal scoring, he's actually his club's all-time top goal scorer. As you can see, he's taken a lot of shots, much more than Shaqiri is, who's maybe looking to kind of feed his teammates a little bit more. But what is interesting is actually if you look at the XG, so that's looking at the quality of the shots taken, Shaqiri's is actually higher. So Shaqiri is choosing his shots a lot more. As a result, his XG per shot is miles higher, and XG per 90 is higher as well. So that's interesting. That so although Berardi is actually taking a lot more shots, from the quality of shots that Shaqiri's taken, this is actually suggesting that Shaqiri will score more, whether that's because of the team he's playing with or whether that's because he's a lot more onus is on him to score. But I just thought that was interesting. Touches in the box, they're actually fairly similar. So Shaqiri's getting in the box just as much as Berardi has, which is interesting itself. Passing stats, Shaqiri way ahead there, almost kind of 10% ahead, which is again suggesting that Shaqiri is much more part of the build, or play much more part of kind of looking for those front three and looking to feed them. Crossing, they're very similar. Assists, kind of fairly similar as well, looking at that from open play, XG assists per 90, that is fairly similar as well. If you look at the fouls window, Berardi has been much more fouled, so you sense that's maybe following on from the dribbles as well, that he's doing a lot more around the box, so getting fouled more as well. And turnovers much higher, but this all points to the fact that he's someone who's trying to make things happen very much for his team. He's obviously been the talisman for those teams, so that's kind of where that's coming from. What Klopp might like is those pressure regains, so Berardi's winning the ball a little bit more than Shaqiri as well, and that's something obviously you have to do if you want to play for this Liverpool team. But I think the most interesting thing from that is the very differing statistics of shots and XG per 90. I think that's something that Jurgen Klopp might want to look at if he is looking at Berardi. But then Jurgen Klopp likes taking shots, so who knows?
Thanks again to John there. I'll start with you on this one, Paul. I could say, is the guy not a lot of people may know about, but he's done well in a kind of a middling mid-table team in Serie A. But what we were just talking about the problem Ryan Kent has, that if we're looking at someone like Pepe in that position, then he's not really going to get a look in. Where between Kent and Pepe would you place Berardi?
It's difficult with lads like this, isn't it? Because I've done the typical thing of going on the YouTube and watching a clip of all of his best bits set to house music, which is just...
Can I just say as well, YouTube guys, change the music. For the love of God, please change the music.
I was watching them thinking, what we should start doing, this is the evolution of football. George, when we sign these lads and everyone's like, but they're not playing that well. Go, it's because they're used to playing to house music. Get George to play the track during the game. Then they'll know what to do, they'll start doing the tricks. But one of my problems with lads like this is, when you're watching, and it's like, it's his greatest moments from last season, and it was showing him missing.
Yeah.
It shows him taking someone on and then getting tackled, yeah. Or just hit one straight at the keeper.
Yeah.
And for me, I'll admit this isn't high-tech scouting for anyone who's watching, but come on.
I thought
we've gone past those lads now, haven't we?
Yeah.
Surely we only want the lads who their highlight reels show at least 15 actual goals.
Now, one of the main reasons I think this link has come is because he himself has mentioned that he would love to play for Liverpool more than anyone else. Now, obviously, there are times in the not too recent past where anyone saying that would have been cause for celebration, but I mean, we're looking at a higher caliber now, aren't we? We shouldn't be flat by this.
I think we are. I mean, I don't, his stats aren't particularly impressive. As Kopi says, if you watch that video on YouTube, it's mad. It's like he does a bit of skill and then someone cleans him out. Or he's through on goal and he beats a man and then he puts it wide. And it's like, this is your highlights reel. And I think he got about 8 goals or something last season, something like that. It doesn't really set, it doesn't set things I like when you see him. And also, yeah, the link definitely comes from, for me, the fact that he said himself, I'd love to play for Liverpool. So would I, mate, but, shit happens. So I don't really I don't see much in this. There doesn't seem to be anyone, that you would listen to who's saying anything about it. And yeah, as well, maybe I shouldn't say this, but the track record of his countrymen at Anfield's not great. If you look at Balotelli, Barini, Aquilani and the Doss.
Yeah.
Obviously the Doss was boss because he sunk Manchester United and that was brilliant. But yeah, the track record of Bayern Italian lads hasn't been great either. I'm sure that doesn't really come into the thinking, but I'm just being a Blair because I'm a fan. But
it's something that it's definitely a story that would happen if we signed him.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, another flop Italian at Liverpool type of thing. So you're waiting for the headline to be written there, but yeah, it doesn't excite me in the way that you watch Pepe videos and that does, and the figures do, and the fact that managers in his own league, with PSG and everything being talked about him, they just went, yeah, he'd be great for us, and it's like, well, he'd be great for us then, wouldn't he? And Bayern Munich fancy him, and Man United fancy him. This lad's just gone, scored 8 goals there, fancy playing for Liverpool. All the best, lad.
I feel like I know what's going to happen here, but it's time for the most scale. Robbo, you're on a roll. We might as well start with you.
I'm going to go And this will be celebrations for Sam. No mows.
0 mows. Wow. That's kind of emphatic.
How does that work, actually? What does he show on screen? Like
This
a little
is-
ghost?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not
you
sure I
actually
like
just
the
made
idea
it.
of being
You
a
just
ghost.
made it harder for him.
Yeah.
He's got to come up with a whole new graphic now.
Yeah, there we go. I like this, and I'm going to say 0 as well, because literally he's just tried to speak it into existence, and that doesn't always work, lads. I promise you. So yeah, I'm interested to see what Sam's going to come up with, but I'm saying no mows either. Paul?
I'm going to be nice to Sam, and I'm going to give him
Minus.
I'm going to give him 1, just for having the balls to put him himself in the frame. Do you know what I mean? Like if I was him, you might as well have a pop, mightn't you? Because even like for all we've taken the piss out of him, maybe he is. We could be looking at him for the future, because he could be Sadio Mane before he moved to Southampton, and in 2 years we'll be like, oh. Actually, he's gone really
realistically,
good.
like as well, we talked about it before, haven't we? The effort now and the team they've got and everything else that goes into scouting Liverpool players, like, and you know, you heard about when they get Firmino and they've been watching him for 4 years or something like that, and it's like, it's mad when you see a story that contradicts that now. I mean, like I seen one the other week about Robertson, and it was like, you know, Hull sent someone, I think it was Stan Ternent actually, up to Scotland to watch him, and he watched like half a match and went, yeah, sign him, we signed. And it's like, hang on. At Liverpool are watching players for years, and the 2 transfer windows ahead and all that. So maybe, look, maybe we're being flippant, aren't we? Maybe there is something in the skill set Liverpool have seen.
Probably why Hull aren't European champions, though, mate.
Well, yeah.
I dare say.
Also, as well, this lad, I mean, according to, I think it was Who Scored, done me research here, you know what I mean? He's got an issue over discipline. And I just think,
God.
well, Klopp's not into that, is he?
No.
You know, like, who's the last player you can think of who had an issue over discipline? Sakho, maybe? Ta-ra, lad.
Yeah,
So,
the clue's in the name there.
So, you know, if the lad's got an issue over discipline, I don't think Klopp could be arsed, because he's not going to fit in with the group like we were just talking about before.
So we'll have to wait and see. Probably not, though. Maybe in a couple of years, when he's a much better player and a bit more mature, we'll hear more about Domenico Berardi. But for now, it's a big thank you to Paul Cope and to Gareth Roberts, and we'll see you in a couple of days.